If you're moving to Boston, thinking about moving to Boston, or just interested in what it's like to live in Boston, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Julia, and I have lived in Boston for almost 4 years now, and I wanted to share my pros and cons of what I like here and what I don't. If you follow me on other social medias, you know that I've been doing a series called Romanticizing My Life in Boston Until I Love It or Leave It. Basically, about a year or 2 years into living here, I realized I just don't love it, and quite honestly, I was a little bit miserable. So I thought the series would either help me fall more in love with the city or make me realize that maybe it's just not a good fit. For a little background, I grew up in the mountains of Virginia. I'm from the Shenandoah Valley area, and about 5 years ago, I moved to New England and absolutely fell in love with the region. I moved to Kennebunkport, Maine, and I lived there just over 2 years, less than a mile's walk from the beach, and I worked at the local coffee shop. I felt like I was living a Hallmark movie. So why did I move to Boston if I loved Maine so much? As much as I loved it there, I think I'm a city girl at heart. I love having amenities. I love being able to shop. I just really like things staying open past 6 p.m. Our community there was also retired, and it was just really hard for me to make friends and grow in the sense of community. I loved New England though, so I said I need to be in a city and I need to be in New England, so my only option is Boston. I will say this a million times, Boston is the best visit city. There's cities you like to live in and there's cities you like to visit. I love visiting Boston. I would go almost every week, at least 3 or 4 times a month when I lived in Maine. So I was really looking forward to moving there and having it all at my fingertips. But without further ado, I'm gonna jump into the pros and cons of living in Boston, and then stay tuned because at the end, I will talk about how much I pay for rent and do an apartment tour. I made some notes so that I can try to stay organized because I have a lot of thoughts on this subject, and we're gonna try to keep it concise, but still helpful. A little more background, I'm not a student, definitely do not work in healthcare, and I'm a creative. I work in marketing. I obviously do influencer marketing. I am just very in the creative field and in business, but I am absolutely not in healthcare or healthcare tech, and I'm not studying as a student. So I think that's a little bit of background that if you fall into one of those, I think Boston is the place for you. If you're a little closer on my side of the spectrum, maybe not so much. All right, we're gonna start with the pros. Let's keep it positive. First pro of Boston is that it is charming and it is beautiful. My favorite city in the world is London, and Boston almost feels like a mini London. The architecture here is absolutely gorgeous. There's cobblestone streets. The Charles River is so beautiful, especially in the summer. Even in the winter with the snow, it is just so beautiful here. Just all of the architecture from modern to old just makes this a really stunning city. Brings me into my next point. It's really safe and clean. So that's a second pro for me. I love clean cities. I am a germaphobe. I am a neat freak. I think cities are disgusting, but Boston does a really good job at being clean. It's beautiful and it's well maintained, which is fantastic. It's also really safe. I have lived here, like I said, almost 4 years now as a single female, and I feel really comfortable walking around at night. I feel comfortable coming and going to my apartment. I've never felt unsafe. I think that Boston and New England in general, especially as a female living alone, is definitely a great place to be. Yeah, it's just really safe. Maybe you're thinking about living alone for the first time and you're trying to find a city to do that in. I definitely would say Boston is super safe compared to any other city, especially on the East Coast. My third pro is proximity. I loved living in Maine, but it was a bit of a drive to go to other parts of New England. Boston's really nice because you are a road trip away from honestly like every New England destination. You can go to Newport, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire. You can go up to Maine, and everything's within like an hour to a 3-hour drive. Very doable day trips, very easy overnight or weekend trips. And then the Logan Airport is a really, really good international airport. Tours there are usually pretty cheap. I want to say like $20 to $40 depending on the time of day. And the international flights to Europe and East are typically a little bit more affordable because you are right on the East Coast and you're a little higher north. I think one of the best parts of Boston is that you're so close to leaving Boston. It's so easy to really get anywhere. Boston has a really good Amtrak station, and it's just a really easy city to travel to and from. My fourth pro is the seasons and nature. While personally I think Maine's a lot more beautiful than maybe the Boston area is, you still have all 4 seasons. I think that they are all stunning in their own way. I know this can be a con for some people if you don't like winter, but I'd say the other 3 seasons definitely make it worth it. You are a drive away from the coast, from the mountains. It's still a beautiful city in itself, and there's a lot of parks and green spaces, which is really refreshing. Talk about weather though. You have all 4 seasons here. I grew up with all 4 seasons, so that's not new to me, but if you're someone who hasn't and you want to experience fall, spring, winter, and summer, then Boston is a great place to do it. You get a taste of all 4. Fall is my favorite season, it always has been, and the leaves here are absolutely stunning. They do change in the fall. Road trip to even more leaves in the mountains, up to Maine, to New Hampshire, or you can just enjoy them in the city and they are just as beautiful. Some people don't like the winter. For me personally, I love the winter. I figure skate, so being able to go outside and skate on a pond is absolutely wild to me. I adore it, and I could not do that in Virginia. I also think the snow is really beautiful. Boston in the snow is absolutely stunning. Spring is short, but it's still nice. I have beautiful cherry blossoms in downtown. Overall, all 4 seasons are great, and that brings me to the last season, which I think is everyone's favorite here. That's summer in New England. New England summers are absolutely gorgeous, and Boston is no exception. The weather is so perfect. It's just a bit hot, but never too much. Growing up in Virginia, our summers were anywhere from 90 to 100 degrees the entirety of summer. And here you maybe get a week it's that hot, and the rest of the time it's just the most perfect summer weather. You can walk around, dine outside. There's so much more to do here in the summer. And again, you're a road trip away from the beach, from the coast, or the mountains. My 5th pro is what I describe as intellectual energy. For me, that's something that's really important, is that I'm able to sit down and have maybe deeper conversations with people and just be around people who are well educated. I have a master's degree, and it's nice to meet other people in that stage of life. Outside of academia, I think people are also very ambitious and thoughtful. It's just the culture that's created here by having so many colleges. A lot of people graduate and then stay. But for me, it's really nice to be around people who are so much more smarter than me, so much more thoughtful than me. It really challenges me to grow and to think about things a different way, and really value learning and discovering and new ideas. It's kind of a nice symptom of that whole university, college, academia space. And my final pro is kind of a bonus one. That's because it's fairly niche, but I'm a figure skater. In Virginia, there just wasn't that much opportunity. I was driving over an hour to my rink. It was hard to find good coaching. Here, the figure skating community is absolutely incredible. I have met almost all of my friends and community here through figure skating. There are rinks everywhere. You can skate outdoors in the winter. I have some of the best coaches. If you're a figure skater or you're even interested in just learning how to ice skate, Boston is the place to be. I have so many more opportunities even here than in Maine. I have the oldest figure skating club in the United States here, which is really cool. It's very tight-knit. And I think because of that, it just attracts a lot of figure skaters to the area. So that's been really amazing. Okay, let's get to cons. I don't want to be too negative. This is all my personal opinion, and I have a few statistics here and there, but again, take this lightly. Weigh the pros and cons yourself. First con, and I think everyone is on the same page as me unless you are just like flamboyantly rich, is that it is really expensive. But more so than it just being expensive is it's expensive without like the wow factor. Paying New York City prices without being able to walk out your door and have Manhattan. When I moved here in, I believe it was 2021, Boston was actually ranked the most expensive per square foot per rental in the entire country. It outdid San Francisco, LA, New York City. Yeah, that was a sticker shock to me. I had no idea how expensive it was here because really it doesn't give New York City vibes. When I was searching for a place to live, the average studio and 1-bedroom apartment went anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000. I had never paid more than $1,200 for rent before, so I was absolutely flabbergasted. But I had already committed to living here, so that was exciting. I think the hardest part about paying that much for rent though is that you just don't have the amenities that a true big city has. In LA, New York, there's just so much more to them. So if you're gonna pay those prices, you just get so much more in return. Boston feels a bit lackluster in that sense of you're paying your entire paycheck to live somewhere and then you're just not getting the results. It feels a bit like a small town in ways, which brings me into my second con, is that it's a really small city. I wish I had done a little more research before I moved here, but when you look at the population of like Boston compared to any other major US city, it is tiny. So it's no wonder it feels small, like a small town, and honestly a bit boring at times. There's limited activities to do outside of eating or drinking. And again, with the cost of living, it's not just the rent. All of the cost of living is high. Restaurants cost far more than the same thing in New York City, or honestly anywhere else in the country that I've visited. The only activities there really are to do are going out to eat at expensive restaurants, going to drink, which I personally don't do, or the activities that they do host typically have a $20 to like $50 admission fee. So I just feel like you can't leave your house without spending at least $100. I think the other thing is, even though we have a lot of good restaurants and places to go out, once you do them a few times, there's not a ton of options. So when someone doesn't drink alcohol, I feel like that limits me even more in what I can do and where I can go out to. And then along those lines, there's just a lack of creative spaces. Again, the few creative events that do happen typically have a pretty large cover charge, or just are a bit lackluster once you attend, because there really isn't that creative community like there are in many other cities that I've been to and lived in. Con number 3, that Boston is truly a healthcare and academic bubble. And again, if you are in those fields, if you're a student deciding where to live, this is 100% the place for you. But unfortunately, if you're not in healthcare tech or healthcare in general, or you're like a student, people just don't want you here. It's not a space for you here really either. I'm in marketing, I'm a creative. Again, I've done photography, I loved fashion, and since living here, it's been very unwelcoming when you tell someone, oh yeah, I work in marketing. They're like, oh, you're not a nurse? Oh, you're not in healthcare tech? Sorry. It's just a really weird vibe. The New England bluntness has never bothered me. This is almost a different type of like clickiness, and I've talked to other creatives in Boston who definitely do feel the same. There's not many of us, but there are a few. I think for me, it's if you're not wanted in a space and people tell you that over and over, I just kind of am like, okay, maybe it's like not the place for me. I would much rather be somewhere where people want to surround me and accept me and be a part. And like, there's nothing wrong with being in a creative field or being in business or being in marketing. Living in Boston makes it feel like it's not okay. People are extremely career driven, to the point where that's all they really know what to talk about. You ask them what they do outside of work and they're just like, sports. And that's great too. We do have a huge sports community. I'm not super into sports. Not a lot of options outside of the healthcare industry. So if you're also looking for a job as a creative, I imagine it'd be really, really difficult. I work for myself and I work a remote 9 to 5, so I haven't had an issue in the job market here. But if you are a creative, I imagine that it'd be a bit difficult trying to find a space that you'll also get paid enough to live here. I came to Boston to find community, to find more people of my age with similar interests. Honestly, I think I found less community here in Boston than I had in Kennebunkport, Maine, which is a tiny beach town. My 4th con, which I know this is a hot take as well, walkability. People will brag about how Boston is such a walkable city. I think there's 2 sides to that coin. So we'll talk about the negative first and the positive second. The negative is that if you're not in Boston proper, downtown, see, the walkability is not great. Unless you live in a neighborhood like maybe Brookline, which I don't even think is Boston City, that has really good public transport. Where I am just outside of city limits, and I know a lot of people who live just inside city limits about a mile away, and there's just not a lot of public transport. I have a commuter rail that runs once an hour if you're lucky. Sometimes it's once every other hour to drive and park at that. And then my closest bus stop is about a mile of walking. So by the time I walk or by the time I drive to the commuter rail, it just makes more sense to drive into the city and park. So I think that definitely limits my ability to enjoy Boston, but I could have never ever afforded rent in that walkable area. I think picking a good neighborhood like Brookline, Cambridge, Boston proper, Seaport, somewhere where you can walk to different things definitely would improve your experience in Boston. For me, it just wasn't financially possible to live in any of those spaces. I'm about 5-ish miles out of the downtown area. Really hard to walk to things. There's not a lot around me to walk to, not a lot of restaurants. I'm just not in a walkable area, and I know a lot of the more affordable neighborhoods in Boston, in the greater Boston area, have the same problem. That being said, if you do live in a place like Brookline or Cambridge or in Boston proper, it is extremely walkable. The entire city of Boston is maybe like 3 miles radius. You could honestly walk the entire thing. And if you don't want to walk the entire thing, the bus system, the T, which is our subway, are really decent. So it's definitely two sides of a coin. It depends on where you live. I think realistically, someone in their 20s like I am is probably not going to be able to live in the walkable part as easily as maybe someone more established who's been in their career and getting paid a whole lot larger of a paycheck. Definitely take that into consideration if you're looking for a place in Boston or the greater Boston area. How much you want to drive your car. Parking and driving in Boston is not very fun. But walking a mile to the bus stop and then being on the bus for an hour is also not very fun. So finally, I've already touched on this. This is my final con. That's just the lack of creativity and diversity. It's no surprise that Boston is not a super diverse city. Again, the culture completely revolves around healthcare and tech and academics. And if you're really outside of that bubble, there's not much left, which makes me really sad because the history and the architecture are so beautiful, but we just don't see those influences as much as you might think. Creative spaces again. There's not a lot of places to go out and really meet people in those creative spaces. I know other cities have really big music scenes or art scenes, and we have those little pockets here and there, but compared to other cities, it's definitely lacking. It's really important to surround yourself with a lot of different types of people. It feels like I can really only surround myself with like one type of person, and they don't even want to be around me because apparently my career is not cool enough for Boston. Very driven, very ambitious, but my whole life is not my career. I think work-life balance is beautiful. I think that there's a place for creativity and structure, and Boston feels just only structure is allowed. So I shared my pros and my cons, and you could probably tell I talked a lot more about the cons. So if you haven't seen this on my Instagram or TikTok yet, I am moving to London. I am so excited. I cannot wait to share my daily London life. I lived there once before for 3 months for an internship in fashion, and I absolutely loved it. I already had fallen in love with London, and I'm so excited to be relocating there. Now that I'm moving, I can also share some details about my apartment because internet safety, friends. This is my 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in Boston. I know I just complained about how expensive it was for a studio, but I'll tell you a little story of how I got it, how much I paid for it, some really quick pros and cons, and then I will jump straight into the apartment tour. This apartment I got super lucky with, and Boston has this very strange lease cycle that every lease starts and ends on September 1st or August 31st, September 1st. Not on that cycle, then they will put you on that cycle. And I think it's just because of the student population is so large here that they like to keep it on like the fall. It is insane. Everyone moves on the same day. You can't get a U-Haul, etc. It's crazy that they do this here. Another weird thing that they do is you have to pay a broker's fee when you rent your apartment. Every apartment I looked at, you're putting about $10,000 to $15,000 down because you pay first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, broker's fee. Your rent's $4,000. You can do the math on that. Yeah, really insane. It's just typical here in Boston. A lot of places you have to rent sight unseen because they are in very high demand because this is a small city, but a lot of people in it. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathrooms. I decided to leave Maine in October because I had no idea that the Boston rental system went on the September 1st cycle. I ended up living in a hotel for a month because I could not find anywhere available. And then I stumbled upon this apartment, and it was new construction. If you can see from the background, you'll see in my tour, gorgeous luxury appliances. I thought I was gonna be living in a studio. I didn't even have like my Zillow set to 2 bedrooms, but this one just happened to pop up, and it was because it's new construction, and it was supposed to be finished by the September 1st deadline, but it was not completed by the September 1st deadline. It wasn't actually completed until December. So they had all of these empty units, and I think they just wanted them filled with whoever they could get in them. And so I am paying $3,400, which includes my parking, for a 2-bed, 2-bath in Boston. Every other studio and 1-bedroom I looked at were these disgusting rat-infested, teeny tiny, like 300 square foot places. Super old, super grimy, same price. Cheapest one that I was able to find was about $2,900, and you're putting down all 4 of those fees. The other really great thing about this place is they just required first month's rent, security deposit, and the owners of the building, I guess, were so desperate to get people into into it so that it wasn't sitting empty for an entire year. They paid the broker's fee. So that ended up working out in my favor. I really think God just like gave me this apartment because he's like, she's gonna live in Boston and she can't afford anything else. It's allowed me to run my business out of the office room. And yeah, it's allowed me to have guests and everything with a spare bathroom. I could not be more grateful. The reason I probably haven't left Boston sooner is because of how much I love this apartment. So any questions, feel free to comment them or message me. I'd love to help you decide if Boston or New England is the place for you. But let's go ahead and do a tour of my 2-bedroom, 2-bath Boston apartment.
Okay, it is time for the much awaited apartment tour. When you first walk in the door, this is what you see. This is the main living space. It functions as my kitchen, my living room, and my workspace area. When I was decorating, I wanted to keep it very minimal and calm, but not sterile. I wanted it to feel elegant, but still cozy. This is the kitchen area. When you first come in the door, I like to keep everything in its place, so I installed these little hooks, some for my purse and keys, and then those for coats for guests. We move into the kitchen area now. As you can see, I have some stunning appliances, just really everything you could possibly want in a kitchen, a huge, beautiful island, and even a refrigerator that was a smart fridge, which I think is a little excessive, but not complaining because it came with. This is my coffee corner. It is one of my favorite spots. You know, many of my videos are filmed here. This is where I keep all my mugs and my coffee supplies. Again, probably the most important part of the kitchen for me. Okay, we are going to move over to my workspace now. This is my little desk setup. I thrifted this vintage desk. And then these paintings, my father's an artist as a hobby, so he painted them for me. I actually have the entire desk set up, everything I got off Amazon and such, linked because I was really happy with how it turned out. Move over to another part of the room, just this corner here where I have some books, some storage. I keep all my cozy blankets. Here's another painting by my father, and of course my keyboard. I don't play much anymore, but I do love having it. We're gonna move into the living room now. This couch is my prized possession. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It is the most comfortable couch I have ever owned, and it also just looks super nice. The lamp is vintage. A lot of the furniture I thrift off Facebook Marketplace, and then I actually painted the abstract piece myself above the TV. We're gonna work our way into the bedroom now. This is my safe haven, my cozy place. I again went very minimal with the decor. A ton of color and clutter really overwhelms me. I have just a few books because I move a lot and carrying them is hard, but I use them as decor around the room. Quick peek into my closet though, it's kind of messy. Again, the painting over my bed was done by my father. Lots of neutral textures just to keep it feeling cozy, but not overwhelming. The painting was inspired by coastal Maine, which is where I used to live, as you know, before Boston. This is my bathroom. We're not going to go super deep into it either. There's of course my skincare and beauty shelves, which kind of look nice, kind of look messy. And then again, here's just some more art. I did pick these up at, I believe, TJ Maxx. We're gonna head to the other side of the apartment now. There's some storage closets on our left, and then a guest bathroom on the right. I absolutely love having a guest bathroom. I hate sharing a bathroom. This is my studio. If you don't know, I do content creation alongside my full-time job as well as selling part-time on Poshmark and Depop. So you'll see the closet and the printing and the shipping area. That's where I pack up and store all my inventory. And then I have this sewing desk. I believe I got it from IKEA. I love it because it's just a space that I can create, and it has this little side piece that you'll see that pulls out, which makes it amazing for sewing as well. But this is the room that I film and take product photos, and it's really just a creative space for me. And that concludes my apartment tour. I hope this video was helpful and you enjoyed, and let me know if you have any comments or questions.